Welcome back to our listeners. This is Mike Layton, the founder of Stochastic Marketing. And since several hundred contractors have looked at or listened to the information that Brandon Jacobs and I discussed in our recent podcast series, I thought it'd be a good idea to introduce contractors to the loan officer at Live Oak Bank who heads up the team of specialists in HVAC and plumbing and electrical contractor loans, Brandon Bolen. Like Stochastic, Brandon Bolen and his team at Live Oak specialize in helping residential contractors improve or grow their businesses and through that build some wealth. So Brandon, thanks for taking the time to share some of the details on your specialized programs, loan programs for contractors.
No problem, Mike. Thanks for having me on today.
So Brandon, tell us a little bit more about how contractors are working with Live Oak to build equity for their retirement. I know you just came from one of our long-term customers. You spent a few days out there. Just kind of give us a little bit of background on that.
Yeah, well, first, before I jump into that, I'll go ahead and kind of introduce Live Oak Bank to some folks and give a little background on who we are as a bank and why a commercial lender based in Wilmington, North Carolina has taken an interest in this industry and lending to it for their growth needs, whether it's acquisition or the subject of this podcast, buying your real estate. I think it sets up well for the customer to know who we are and improves our relationship with them. But so we were founded in about 2008, just a little over 10 years ago, in Wilmington, North Carolina, and we have one bank branch. So most folks are probably thinking, okay, so you have one bank branch, how are you able to lend to me if I'm in upstate Washington? Well, the thing is like Mike alluded to earlier, I only work with air conditioning, plumbing, and electrical service contractors. And because I'm so niche focused, the FDIC, the folks who regulate our bank, allow us to lend in all 50 states. And so that's what's special about us. And we focus on small businesses. So we're actually the number one SBA lender, and we'll introduce what the SBA loan product is and how it helps in terms of acquiring real estate. But we, in 2018, lent over $1.2 billion using that loan program. So it's something that many of you may have even heard about and have heard that it can be tedious, but we specialize in it. And so because we're large like that, it allows us to make sure the process is smooth and easy for the customer when it's time for them to get a loan to grow their business.
So, Brandon, probably a lot like a lot of our listeners, I have an incomplete understanding of the SBA loan process. I don't know much about it other than maybe what I read in my local business section or local paper. And kind of I'd heard that they're a little bit difficult to work with when working with a local bank. But tell us a little bit how contractors can use SBA loans with a specialist like Live Oak Bank as opposed to the commercial bank down the street that has never looked at the books of an HVAC or plumbing contractor.
Absolutely. And I think Brandon Jacob was actually on a previous Stochastic podcast where he discussed, and we know this is a hot point or a hot button issue in the industry, succession planning and an owner selling to their son or daughter or an employee, and how an SBA loan can be used by the buyer to buy out the current owner. And I would suggest all of you who haven't listened to go listen to that podcast. It's very informative, and Brandon definitely brings years of experience in consulting and helping folks getting those types of transactions done and how an SBA loan can be used to help get that complete. But in terms of the difference between using a large nationwide lender who specializes in the SBA loan versus a conventional loan is simple in the sense that a lot of banks don't actually understand how to use an SBA loan. They can all use it, but there's a lot of nuances that can help that a bank who consistently uses it and understands how to apply it to a customer's need, that a bank like Live Oak who uses it all day, every day, can beat out a conventional lender. And so for those of you that don't know what an SBA loan is, essentially what it is it's a loan administered by the Small Business Administration, and it enables banks like Live Oak to lend to small businesses throughout the country to allow them to continue to grow and to sustain the jobs in their town. And because it's a government guaranteed loan, the focus is on cash flow. So can your business repay the proposed loan, not the collateral? So if you're looking for $1 million loan to buy your real estate, that loan does not have to be fully secured. The SBA, because they essentially guarantee the loan, it allows the bank to really focus on, can you repay the loan, not do you have the collateral to fully secure it. And your local conventional lender, your local bank, may still try to apply conventional rules to an SBA loan because they don't quite understand it. People who can qualify for an SBA loan from an experienced lender like Live Oak may not be able to get it through their local bank.
So in some recent podcasts, we talked about, using SBA loans for acquisitions or owner transitions. But, we really didn't talk about your types of loans for real estate, right? And, conventional loans for real estate, kind of my understanding was always, we'll loan you the money to, build and expand your offices. All you got to do is pledge your house, right? Which always made me take a deep breath and go, I don't know. Why should a contractor own their own real estate?
Well, I think the first thing that if you're a contractor, owning your real estate is just like owning your business. When you want to sell it, you're selling it to build your retirement. And if you own your real estate, it offers another way for you to build equity in that property and sell it with your business. Or if you sell your business and want to continue to own the real estate and have the buyer of your business pay you a nice little monthly lease payment, that's recurring income you can get. So it offers you two different options for when you'd like to retire and sell your business. And it's another great way in order to make a statement to your community that you're here to stay. And a lot of folks use that physical presence to open up on a main road, have some signage so that people drive by and not only know that you're here to stay because you own the property, but it's just another physical presence for you to advertise on, just like you would with a billboard. And if you're currently renting a location, a lot of times you might have a landlord who increases your rent every year, or they put restrictions on you that don't allow you to grow your business. Just last week, we were up at a business near here, and they had essentially grown so much where the physical presence or their physical footprint could not help facilitate their growth anymore. So they came to Live Oak looking for a loan in order to be able to buy a new piece of land in order for them to build on and give them a larger footprint to help them continue to facilitate your growth. And so that's just one of the ways that an SBA loan can be used to help facilitate the growth of your business by expanding your physical footprint. And also, if you already, even if it's not within your budget to build a 30,000 square foot facility, if you buy small and build on it, or you buy a property and renovate it, and you own that land, it also offers you the ability in the future to add on to that land. Maybe you need to add a garage or an additional warehouse, and owning your land allows you to do that, whereas if you lease it, your landlord may not allow you to grow it. So those are just some of the few benefits that owning your real estate for a contractor can help you grow your business and help you with your retirement down the line.
So what are the uses for an SBA loan? Can I use an SBA loan to buy a strip mall and kind of just hold it as an investment, or what are some of the limitations?
Mike, that's an excellent question. So it has to be used for business purposes. So you can't receive an SBA loan and buy a strip mall and only operate out of 20% of it. If you bought the strip mall and operated out of at least half of it, you'd be able to get an SBA loan. But essentially, the SBA wants to make sure that if Live Oak Bank were to extend a loan to you, that the main purpose of you buying that real estate or buying land and building a building is that you're going to operate your business out of it. they want to lend money to the operating business, so the air conditioning or plumbing service company. But there's a lot of different real estate uses that you can use it for, and I'll name just a few, and I'm sure many folks have a lot of different ideas, and I always suggest calling me to see if it's something where an SBA loan from Live Oak Bank could help fit. But to help spark some ideas for folks, you can use it to buy an existing building. So there could be a property that's ready-made just across the street that might offer you a larger footprint, or just the ability to own and not have to lease. We could finance that type of acquisition. Or you could buy a building like that might need heavy renovations. You need to add some walls inside or configure it to your needs, or pave the parking lot. An SBA loan can be used for those renovations, and it can be used to purchase a piece of land and do ground-up construction on. And later on I'll talk a little bit about the benefits of using an SBA loan to build and actually fund the construction portion of any type of real estate loan. And it can be used to add on to an existing property. So some folks may own 2 acres of land, and their building's 4,000 square feet. They've outgrown it. Rather than buy a new piece of land and build a whole larger building on it, they just want to add a 2,000 square foot warehouse on the property. We can help finance that. And it can also be used to refinance existing business or an existing building loan that you have outstanding, maybe on unreasonable terms. There's a lot of different uses for it.
And so what are some of the benefits? I mean, what's the sweet spot? I mean, are there limits to how much I can borrow, or, how fast do I have to pay it off? Is it 60 days cash? Give me a little bit of what's the sweet spot for an SBA loan for a plumbing or HVAC contractor? What are the benefits? Those are all
great points, which I'll get to, but I would say the biggest benefit for an SBA loan, and this is especially for all of you who are the existing owners, which I'm sure you all are, you already own the business, it's already operating. The SBA allows you to acquire a piece of real estate or acquire a piece of land and build on it, and they don't require money down if you're an existing business, because what they view is that you've already got an entity that you've built up, a business that you've put equity into, and that's sufficient, and they view it as an expansion of that equity by buying another piece of property or real estate to facilitate the growth of your business, whereas your conventional lender, which I'm sure some of you have already bought real estate for your business, and your conventional lender probably requested 20% down. So if you're looking to buy a building for $1 million, that's $200,000 that you have to come up with, whereas if you use an SBA loan in that instance, the SBA loan is not going to require you to put that $200,000 down. You can get $1 million loan.
I went through that years ago. We built an 80,000-foot warehouse, and I probably should have done an SBA loan because, basically you pledged your house, took equity out of the house to make the down payment on the construction, which of course took 6 months longer than they thought. Right? It can make things kind of tight.
Oh, absolutely, and especially in this industry where seasonality can really affect you, especially in air conditioning. Being able to store that cash and use it for the down months where you're just running service calls can be really helpful. So I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the SBA loan in terms of buying real estate, but there's a lot more as well. There's no balloon payments, so you get a 25-year term if you buy your real estate, or if you use an SBA loan to buy your real estate. So there's no balloon payment, which means you don't have to come up with $1 million in cash to pay down your loan in 5 years or hope another bank refinances it. If you get an SBA loan, it's fully amortizing, so you pay it back over 25 years. If you want to pay it quicker, that's fine. But most folks like that option of having that low monthly payment and no risk of having to come up with a huge amount of cash. Another thing is that there's no financial covenants, so a lot of banks might restrict your growth or say, okay, if you make money in this excess amount this year, you have to use it to pay down the loan, which restricts your growth in other aspects. You can't save that cash or reinvest it to buy new trucks or hire new employees. And you can also receive up to $5 million. So it's capped at $2 million. It's up to $5 million, and you can receive multiple loans. So you could buy your real estate and outgrow it and receive a second SBA loan to add another facility on that property. So it's great in terms of allowing you not just one time to grow your business, but multiple times, as long as you're not above $5 million in terms of exposure.
And you don't have to have paid off the first loan to pick up a second one if you needed to add on, in the back, if you needed to put on a parts warehouse, if you had to put on docks or something. That's you don't have to pay off the first one and refinance the whole thing.
Correct. You could essentially theoretically, you could have 10 $500,000 loans outstanding, and as long as the business can repay the debt associated with that, you're doing just fine.
Well, what are the benefits then of kind of a contractor in that kind of scenario who's trying to build new space, either one massive facility, that's maybe sitting underutilized, or he lays it out so he can sort of add bays? I mean, what are the construction benefits of an SBA loan?
That's a great question. In that specific instance, a lot of times when we're looking a lot of folks will come and say, hey, can you pre-qualify me? How much can I receive now? So a lot of people will base their decisions off of what we say. And so some folks might have a vision of immediately building a 20,000 square foot facility, but their business cash flow might not be there yet, and they can only potentially afford to do a 10,000 square foot facility. So I always suggest making sure you buy a piece of land or buy a property that does have some space for you to grow on, but to always keep it within budget and make sure that when you initially do it that you don't overextend yourself and put yourself in a rough position. And then you can construct later as the business grows. You can receive an additional loan to then build on the property that you already own and make sure that the business isn't going to be affected by this new debt. And that way you're not stressed with a facility that's too big for you. And so when it comes to constructing the actual project, keeping within budget is very important, and Live Oak Bank understands that. And actually, as a bank, I would say more than half of the loans we do are for ground-up construction deals. So for folks buying a piece of land and then building their facility.
Now, Brandon, I think you mentioned that Live Oak's got an actual construction relationship manager on site or engaged when you actually get these loans closed. I got a number of contractors. I'm laughing about it because they've built new buildings. It's taken longer than they thought, and their assumption was, I've worked with light commercial for 30 years. I've put in HVAC units. I've got relationships with, general contractors. I'm going to be the general contractor and manage the whole thing. And then they find out the permitting process didn't go as well as they thought. The occupancy took a little longer. So Live Oak's got or has somebody that they work with that understands the SBA loan paperwork side of it, and then also acts as sort of a third-party traffic cop for the whole deal to make sure it shows up on time and you can actually move into the space when you think it is, right?
Yes, absolutely. So not only do they help on the paperwork side, so before the deal closes to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, once the deal closes, where it's the actual point in which funds are being dispersed, the general contractor, subcontractors are being paid to do the site work and then build the foundation and bring in the materials and eventually finish the project. They hold your hand throughout this entire construction period to make sure that everything is in place and that there's no cost overruns putting the customer in a bind, or if there are delays in the process, they work with you to make sure that everything gets done on time as best as possible. And then if there is overruns, then we work with you to make sure that the project gets completed.
And that gets the contractor out of a box. A lot of our listeners do a little bit of new home construction, right? Mm-hmm. And so if they establish a relationship with someone who maybe they just put in 10 or 15 systems a year, not a huge general, not like you're dealing with Pulte Homes that might build 500 houses. But it's pretty common to have a relationship with a new home builder in an area. Maybe you put in 10, 20 systems a year. Well, of course, if that guy is pouring the concrete or managing the thing for your, 5,000, 10,000 foot building, you're not in a good leverage position to get the best price, right? But your construction relationship manager can play the bad cop in those kind of situations and kind of help you also say, this is about what we've done this 10 other times for other HVAC or plumbing contractors who built similar sized buildings, and here's how long it takes. And now I know it's your first time, but I do this for a living, and that's something that Live Oak brings to the table that your local commercial bank wouldn't have any idea, right?
Yeah, we're used to working with general contractors and making sure that plans get done in time, that the budget comes within budget. And a lot of times, even though I'm sure, especially in this industry, there may be a lot of folks who do have relationships with local general contractors that perform commercial or residential construction projects, but we always suggest finding somebody who is especially adept, even if you don't have a relationship with them, in terms of building the type of facility that you want, and getting multiple bids from multiple general contractors to see who works best for you. It may not be somebody that you know, but you may be able to get better estimates or better bids from one of the general contractors if you bid out your building versus using somebody you know. And then in the end, our construction relationship manager is with you to make sure that the project gets done and that it comes within budget ultimately. As a bank, what we're most concerned about is making sure that, one, the deal comes within budget, and we have restrictions where we're not going to, if we approve you for $1 million and your project comes in at 1.2, we're going to ask that you reduce the square footage, or some of the materials that you're looking to put in there may be of not such high quality, but it all depends. And what we do is make sure that we all work within budget. And the biggest thing is opening the lines of communication between the general contractor, the customer, and the bank to make sure that nobody's in the dark and ultimately helping getting the project get completed.
So tell us a little bit about the loan process, right? So, it's kind of a checklist. We've gone through a checklist of the benefits and what you do with it. But if a contractor who, and like most of us, you drive around and you say, boy, it'd be a nice place for my shop. It's right in a super primary or primary zip codes. It's a lot of traffic going by. Everybody will see me, make a big presence. Okay, but now if I want to actually start the process and kind of look at the checklist of things I have to do before I talk to Live Oak, or how do I start the process for an SBA loan process at Live Oak Bank?
The typical loan process, most of the time folks are thinking about, hey, my lease is coming up in a year. I want to own a property that's going to help me grow my business. Okay, now I need to go find a bank who can pre-qualify me, let me know what I need to be looking for, what purchase price I need to be looking for. Can my business meet that debt? And folks will call us up to say, hey, can you send me an application packet of what will allow me to get approved, or what I know I can get approved for, so that I can now start looking for a piece of property that fits the bill, and Live Oak Bank will be able to finance it. And so that application consists of business tax returns. So the bank goes in and looks at your business tax returns. So we look at the revenue and the profits of the business, as well as a few other SBA forms to essentially make sure that the business hasn't filed bankruptcy before, or that it hasn't defaulted on a government guaranteed loan. And then we also look for personal documents as well. So we ask for your personal financial statement, personal tax return, and a resume, and a few other SBA forms to make sure you're not currently under indictment for any crimes. And what that allows us to do is conduct the financial analysis to determine whether or not you qualify for a loan in the size that you're looking for, or if you can qualify for a loan that is larger than what you may be looking for. Because a lot of folks we found don't know what a bank, similar to how I don't know how to do a change out, they may not know what a bank specifically is looking for to get approved. So a lot of times we take the time to go through it and tell them and educate them what exactly we're looking for to help get the loan approved.
So that's kind of the first step? Do you have to do, like an environmental requirements? I know here in the Midwest we got some massive floods going on, so someone has to do the usual. I've appraised the real estate. It's not in a flood plain. It's people weren't, processing lead on the site I'm trying to buy, so you have to do that, right?
Yeah. So once we get the application, we'll send it to proposal where I essentially outline the terms and the budget of what somebody is looking to do, whether it's just purchase real estate or the budget will lay out how much I expect the cost of construction to be $800,000 and the soft cost of the construction to be $150,000, and we lay out those terms. Then if the customer likes that, they sign it, and that goes to underwriting. The underwriter does a deep dive into the process, and they create a memo that goes to our credit team, who ultimately stamp approval on the loan, committing to the customer that we're willing to finance this much for you to build your building or buy a new piece of property or renovate it. Now, in terms of the appraisal and the environmentals, we order those during the closing process, which is the final step. So after approval, the customer will be assigned a closer, where they essentially help compile all the SBA documents and business documents, and the construction relationship manager comes into play to help finalize the plans and the permits and whatnot for the actual piece of real estate. And during this process is where we order the appraisal, where to make sure that the piece of land or the real estate that you're buying is valued appropriately. So we want to make sure the customer is protected and that they're not overpaying for a piece of property. And we also pull environmental reports as well to essentially make sure that the land's not contaminated. Like you brought up, you'll see an assortment. 9 times out of 10, the property is unencumbered, but every now and then somebody will have either had a laundromat on the property or it used to be a gas station. I would specifically recommend to folks try not to buy a property that was a gas station and hasn't yet had the gas tanks removed, because those will have to be removed and that can be costly.
Well, let's I think that about covers it for a short introduction. Anybody that's listening has to probably go, I think Brandon knows a lot about this and knows a lot about our industry. I know it's a topic of a lot of interest, either with like Brandon and Jacob, who talk about growth through acquisition, but also for the real estate and how to use it to build equity, because that's really what we're all working for every day, right, is to build our equity. How do they find you? How do they get out to you, reach you for a one-on-one conversation? I mean, you want me to give them your contact information, or what would you like them to email you, or what's the direct number? Who would you like them to call?
So my cell phone number is 540-907-6561. I would give you my work number, but I have it forwarded to my cell phone, so I may as well give you my cell phone number, which is, again, 540-907-6561, or my email address, which is Brandon, BRANDON, .Bolen, BOLEN, @liveoak.bank. And I encourage you to call me any time of the day. And if any of the ideas in terms of the use of an SBA loan for real estate purposes caught your attention, don't hesitate to reach out, and I'd be happy to talk with you.
And, Brandon, I just appreciate it because, we see each other at trade events, and we've got mutual customers who all say nice things, and Live Oak's been a real game changer for a lot of them, particularly for some of the acquisitions that they're looking for. or setting up new branches. But I know hundreds of contractors have really already expressed an interest in some of these podcasts in the past, and I just thought this is always just a good way to introduce some of them directly to you. And, we're always looking for ways to introduce people like yourself to some of our contractors. And, I just appreciate you making a half hour available to us. And if there's anything else Stochastic can do for you, of course, let us know. If you're thinking about adding a location in another market, or you're thinking about doing an acquisition, let us know. We can kind of give you an idea how much potential business can be generated out of there. And I'd encourage anybody to give Brandon a shout. Realize he's on the East Coast. For any of your West Coast listeners, when you pick up the phone at 7 o'clock your time, just remember it's kind of late in Brandon's day. But no, I appreciate it. I think a lot of our listeners will get a lot of benefit from it. And I'm older than almost everybody who's listening, and I wish I'd have used some SBA loans years past in some other businesses. It would have been a lot less stressful than betting my house. But appreciate it, Brandon.
Thank you for having me on, Mike.